Go out to all the world and tell the good news. And we feel the impact of that here, because from here the word went out to all the world. Go out to all the world. And there was a huge conflict about that in the early church, because after so many centuries of living in a separated way, which was necessary for the original preservation of that experience of God that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had, to form a people that would be the light of the world and the salt of the earth. They couldn't get mixed up and diluted and disappear among the nations. And there were quite a few ways to protect that identity and foster it. And one of them was certainly dietary. And keeping company with your own. And this becomes a major conflict that came to the fore a number of times, but already with Peter in Jaffa, with the vision of the food he should eat, and also with the principle that Jesus had spoken that what makes a person impure is not what they consume in terms of food, because that's all a biological matter and a chemical matter, but what comes out of our hearts. That's what makes us impure. We actually have that experience, because when we express hatred, when we express violence, even verbal, even emotional, we don't feel happy afterwards. We might feel a moment of satisfaction if our anger is very high, that we spoke our mind and we addressed all that was inside of us and gave it expression and made the other person realize how upset we are. But at the end of the day, we're not happier because we do that. We're happier when there's a triumph of love in our hearts, a triumph of forgiveness. Because that's our nature, that's the way we're built, because we're made in the image and likeness of the Almighty. And it's a rough thing when we separate from that image and likeness. That's our true association with being God's people. Not so much the food or the dress or other externals. That image of the Almighty is in our heart and soul. And then there are other things that are done sometimes to accommodate people. And we have that great example here at the Sea of Galilee when they were pushing Jesus for the temple tax, indirectly by pushing his disciples. And the disciples become insecure because of the social pressure, which is a reality. We live supporting and being supported by others. We live dependent on others. And we want the approval of others. And if we don't have a certain basic amount of acceptance and approval, we become unsure. We can easily become unsure of ourselves. And that becomes hard to bear. People need to be strong characters and have a strong will and be able to sustain opposition to their person, to their choices of life. And that's not easy. I wonder how long the bird will stay there. But we mightn't stay that long. But I think she's aware, or he's aware, that we're here watching from Malaysia. Yes, there we go. From Malaysia to Alaska. And from South America to Norway. And the bird has flown away. And now we see in the letter to the Galatians another moment in that struggle because of that peer pressure. Oh, I was telling you about the case of Jesus there when I got distracted with the bird. So there was the occasion when they're pushing, why isn't Jesus paying the temple tax? And Jesus addresses Peter and says, do the kings of the earth, their children, pay the taxes? And they said, no. The normal folk pay the taxes. Sometimes that happens still in politics today. Well, anyway, and Jesus said, just so we don't cause trouble with these people, just go down to the shore and cast your net and pull in the first fish. And there are 2 coins in his mouth, and take them out, just so that they see that, we're not being disobedient, that we're doing our part. And the very fact that Jesus could command Peter to go down and take out the 2 coins in the fish's mouth is a kind of an expression that he's in charge of everything. Like, he didn't need to pay taxes, it's all his. So, Lord of heaven and earth, So, in a similar situation today, I think we have Peter under pressure from the people in Antioch, is also avoiding taking food with the Gentiles in Antioch. There's a very nice little in between the lines type of thing to read here as well, is that our church tradition says that Peter was 7 years in Antioch, leading the church there. And that's a nice instant from the letter to the Galatians. And so Paul confronts Peter, because this is a major issue. Do the Gentiles need to have circumcision? Do they need to follow the dietary laws? Do they need to do all this stuff because we're saved by faith in Christ? And then we see Paul confronting Peter directly and clearly. And yet this confrontation is also very about the issue. Sometimes we can reach a point where we confuse the issues and the person. And obviously they're very closely linked at times in attitudes and stubbornness. But it's very clear that the value of accommodating certain people that are very insistent on issues that are in a way secondary, but also have very important matters of principle, then to be able to deal with the issues squarely and fairly and still be a brother to your brother. This is one of our nutria, a little one. Well, not so little, but I don't think that's the full size. They grow a little bit bigger. So we have seen them before as well. And what's good to see is then that the church established that as the major principle. Obviously, it's difficult when different cultures come together. And that's a challenge today in the situation of migration. How to be able to meet the other and stand for the principles in the proper way with charity and goodness. How to go out to all the nations and bring the good news. It's so easy for us to fall into hypocrisy, into cheap accommodations. But also we need patience, and we need to be sensitive and gradual as we do all of this. Be kind. People need time to grow. And the church also needed time to grow. And this issue showed up a bunch of times. There are quite numerous evidence of this in the New Testament. So it's a path of transformation. It's not all accomplished in a day. Just like Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is like leaven, and it works through the dough until it's all leavened. We see that happening in our time, how the gospel is continuing to work in society. It's a point of reference, it's a point of it's a standard, the treatment of others. Go out to all the world and tell the good news. And this good news is in a way synthesized in the Our Father prayer, in its very bare version that we have in Luke's Gospel here with the beginning of chapter 11. And Jesus was praying in a certain place, Where was that? Maybe it was here at these stones. But I doubt it, because this was part of the city of Magdala, so this was a busy place. And he chose the quiet places to pray. And then one of his disciples said, "Teach us to pray." Just as John the Baptist taught his disciples. And so he starts off with the praise of the Father. Father, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. This kingdom of justice and truth and peace and service and humility, servant leadership, compassion. Your kingdom come. Give us each day our daily bread. The daily portion. I don't need to win the lottery of $1 million today to be happy. I'm happy to have the bread I need for today. And of course, if you are parents responsible for little children, you have to think about the rainy day, about their education. But our basic trust is in the Father. Give us this day our daily bread. Sometimes we build up fortunes and sit back like that rich landowner who had a huge harvest and needed to build bigger harvests and say, "Relax, my soul. Now you got all this stock and this major company, and you've got all this treasure mounded up." Well, comes the virus and it's all deflated. And that industry dies where you had all your investments. No matter what investments we have, we need that deep trust in the Father, because all of our investments in the material world are easily washed away by a typhoon or a storm like the people in Florida suffered so severely recently. how much gets washed away in the storms of time and the wars and with the viruses, with the pandemics and epidemics and economic downturns. Certain industry sector hits trouble and ricochets into many other areas. We still need that trust. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses. And we give God the measure how to forgive us, the way we forgive others. And there we are again in the image and likeness of the Father, one who loves and wants to redeem us. And do not subject us to the test. People, lots to think about, lots to pray about. May you have a happy day today. Here it's very quiet, Yom Kippur in Israel. And may it be a blessing for all those who practice the fasting and the prayer. God bless you. See you later, alligator.